Right. So sampling is one of the main aspects of research that you need to be very familiar with, and you need to ensure that you have got the proper sampling done. So it's one of the very important aspects of research. So here tonight we are going to look at the fundamental concept of sampling and its importance in research and data analysis, and try to look at the various sampling methods, as well as try to see if and when they are appropriate. Also try to understand the potential sources of bias and error in sampling and how you can minimize those, and also how to implement the different types of sampling techniques. So that's the basics that we are going to cover. I will try to see if I can cover at least the probability sampling component first tonight. Maybe we may need to go into the second part next time we meet, but I will try to see if I can go through the whole thing. Um, so sampling traditionally is defined as a process of selecting a number of individuals for a study in such a way that individual represents larger group from which they are selected. Okay, so that is the traditional definition of sampling, where we are saying that it's a representation or representative um, uh, a group of people or a group of representations from a larger group. However, a true definition is different for quantitative and qualitative domains. So, because quantitative, yes, that is true, but qualitative, it's not where we're talking about representative samples. So, it doesn't have to be a representative sample for qualitative design. Sampling in quantitative research is selecting a subset of individuals, items, or data points from a larger population for the purpose of making inferences or drawing conclusions about the entire population. If we want to draw conclusions about the entire population, then it has to be representative. So that's the reason why quantitative, we say that it has to be representative of the population. However, in the case of qualitative, sampling is the process that determines who and what will be included. Sorry, who or what will be included in the study. It doesn't necessarily have to be from a larger group or representation. Unlike quantitative research, where researchers typically seek to obtain a representative sample, qualitative employs the strategies to gather information-rich data and achieve in-depth insights into specific subject or context. So you don't really have to talk about representative samples in qualitative research or in qualitative sampling. It is the quantitative sampling that you require uh, in a representation. Okay, so let's just say that just a simple question I will ask all of you. Let's say the 16 of you who are here, if all of you, okay, and I'm saying all of you, okay, if all of you have the same sort of, okay, if the favorite color of all of you is the same, let's say whatever color that is, if it is the same color, if all of you, and if I want to find out what is the favorite color of the whole group, how many people do I have to ask to find that out? Ahmad, I don't want to know. I don't want to know your favorite color, but if let's say, okay, pink, if pink is the favorite color of all 16 of you, okay, if pink is the 15, how many people do I have to ask before I know that, before I can conclude that this group is actually uh, likes pink?
Maybe half of the class.
Why half, Shafa?
Uh, uh,
Because that will be an adequate number of participants to get the enough information.
Adila and Shafa, if I started with a very big if, right? If all of your favorite color is pink, then I have to ask only one of you to know, to be sure that one of you will be representative of all of the 16, right?
But sir, without doing the research, how do you know that it's our one color from favorite color again?
Do we all know that we have the same color is favorite?
I'm not saying do we all know. I'm just saying that if all of you, if all of yours favorite color is pink, then I have to ask only one of you, right? Only one will be a representative of all 16 of you. Because
Yes.
regardless of whether I ask one or regardless of whether I ask 8 or 16, I will get the same result.
Yeah, true.
Shafa,
Yeah. Yes, sir.
okay. That is what we are. I'm not saying that that is the case for all populations, but there are certain populations, there are certain groups of people who are very homogeneous. So if a group is very homogeneous, then the representative sample would be smaller. If the group is very heterogeneous, in other words, very varied in their, if 16 of you have 16 different colors as favorite colors, then the sample I have to take to get a representation would be very large. If uh, we would know, mostly we would know in terms of a population, we would define homogeneity or heterogeneity based on demographics. Like there would be certain demographics that are relevant to your research. So let's say if you want to find out how female and male differ in terms of certain aspect, like say for example AI benefits, is there any difference between females and males? So you will have to take an adequate number of females and adequate number of males to actually for that distribution. So that is the representation that you have to think of, and we will be talking about those representations and how those representations can be managed in a while. Okay, so let's just go ahead and then we will see.
I have a question, Mihar.
Yes, yes.
Now, my question is, if, for example, in a class there are 16 of us, and if the researcher knows that we all have a common understanding, so one sample is enough from the class?
Researcher has to know, but the researcher has to have a valid, documented reason to know that. Researcher cannot actually work on intuition. I think that is one of the things that we decided on the very first day. So it's not intuition. It has to be a valid, reported reason why all of you are sort of the same. So if yes, if that is reported, then yes, one would be enough. Does that answer your
Sir,
question, Ahmad?
Yeah.
Okay, Shafa.
sir, I think Aruba we got confused because we were discussing about color. Does it apply, for example, to a classroom where the students tend to score less in a certain subject? So can we guess that okay, Kurihakudimas may subject to Madunna just like a color, similar color? Is it the same concept here?
Okay, Shafa, if let's say we want to take a sample of people who score low, okay, so let's say we want to find out what what are the reasons why people are um, people are scoring low in let's say a certain subject, and then we want to actually sample a group of people who are scoring low. So if the whole group is below a certain threshold, then we know for sure that yes, any person that I take would be below the threshold. If that is the case, then yes, it's a representative sample, but there are certain quantitative sort of how do I put this? Quantitative measures, quantitative limits that you have to use in order for statistics to be valid. So those statistics we'll be talking about, but in terms of sampling, yes, if the whole class actually failed, and then if you want to sample from a group of people who have failed, then the homogeneity is only based on if you are only looking at grade, then yes. But if you're looking at other demographics like the age or the the amount of time spent on studies and all that, then there will be differences between people. If there are no differences between a group of people, then the sample size would be smaller. But if there are differences between the groups, between the individuals in the group, then the sample size has to be larger. Does that answer your question, or am I making you more confused?
No, no, sir. Understood.
Okay. I think when we go through all of the concepts, you will understand better with what we're talking about in terms of sample sizes and all that. So let's just look at some of these. So sampling technology terminology, population, which is actually again relevant. Population is relevant for quantitative studies. For qualitative studies, a population is not relevant because we don't really look at a population and take a sample, but we look at individuals in qualitative rather than population. So population is relevant for quantitative studies where we say we look at a population and say, okay, this is the population I want to study and see how the different aspects of within that population. So that is the entire group or set of individuals, items, or elements that you want to study. Accessible population is that within that the population, there may be groups that you are not able to reach or you are not able to actually collect data from. So accessible population would be the group that not the sample, but the group from which you have to whom you can actually access. I can give you an example. We were doing research on Malay schools. Then there was a research question where we want to study all the Malay schools. That was our population. All of the Malay schools. Actually, we were looking at, I think the drop in the O-level results or something like that. So all the Malay schools was our population. However, one school actually said that they can't allow us into data collection. Uh, they had some activities during that period, and they said, okay, we cannot allow you into for data collection. So that population, that group was inaccessible to us during our research period. So our accessible population was the whole of Malay schools except that particular school. So that is accessible population. A sample is a subset of those. So a subset can be a group of students from all Malay schools, or you can take a group of schools. So but it has to be a population that can give, sorry, it has to be a group of people that can actually reflect all the Malay schools. So that is and then the sampling frame is the list or the source from which the sample will be drawn. In other words, that is the list from which you draw the samples. So that is the group. So generally, if we are going to, let's say, take a sample from a population, we list every individual in the population and then draw the population of that. And then there are different means of doing it, or we will get into those as well. Sampling unit is what would be a sample for every particular case. Let's say, for example, when we are talking about, we want to study how principals, leadership, and actually affect the teachers. So there can be two ways of looking at it. So we can look at interviewing principals or sampling principals, in which case the sampling unit would be a principal. Okay. But if you want to look at from a teacher's perspective, how does teachers see principal's leadership? Then a sampling unit would be every teacher, not every principal. So there can be sampling unit may differ. And then the sampling method we'll be talking about later, how you actually draw every individual from that population, and the sampling size is the size of the population, size of the sample. There are some concepts like sampling error. That means that let's say I just now I talked about the favorite color and so on. So if I take a sample and then from the sample I deduce that okay, the favorite color is pink, but the actual favorite color is not pink, but it is something else, then that difference is called the sampling error. So there's an error in my sample because I was not able to get a proper representation of the population. I was not able to actually understand the proper population better. The representative sample and how well the sampling actually mirrors the characteristics of a diverse population. That is what we are going to look at. The excess to the sample is the ability to reach the contact or the and obtain data. So sampling error is the error. The representativeness is how representative that sample is, and the excess is how accessible that uh, group is. There are two types of sampling. Generally, it's very easily looked at. Probability sampling is more quantitative, is used for more for quantitative research, and non-probability sampling is more aligned with and more useful for qualitative research. However, you will see nowadays that people use probability sampling for qualitative, and some people use non-probability sampling for quantitative as well, but it's not advised to do that. But there are large, even well-known researchers done in this different ways, but that's not the proper way of doing it. Probability sampling is actually selecting a sample from a larger population in such a way that every individual will have a chance of being actually drawn into the population. So every individual will have an equal chance of actually being. So in other words, uh, there is a chance that every individual can be part of the sample. Every individual in the population can be part of the sample. So that is what probability sampling is. It ensures that the sample is representative of the population, making it one of the cornerstones of the scientific research. So that's the basic idea of that. And in probability sampling, there are four types. There is simple random, systematic, and stratified and cluster sampling. So there are four different types of sampling. We will do these four tonight, and then we will stop there for tonight. Simple random sampling is where the process of selecting a sample that allows the individual in the defined population to have an equal and independent chance of being selected for the sample. In other words, it's like drawing a ball from a group of balls on in a jar. If we are talking about, let's say, in the class of let's say in our class of 16, if we want to have a simple random sample, then we will put all your names in a bowl and then select one. And then if you want to select, let's say, uh, 5 people, then what we will have to do is that if it is going to be an equal chance, then every time you select one person, and then let's say it is Zushan, then we put the name back, and then we check again. Why do we put the name back? Because if out of 16, selecting one would be one in 16 chances of being selected. So if you take that out and keep it, and then the next time you actually pick one, that will be 1 in 15. So if you want to give equal chance, then you have to put it back. So the question is then what happens then uh, if the same person is selected twice, you do it again until you get 5. Okay, so that's the simple random. The advantage is it's an unbiased representation, and it is simple, and it is statistically valid. Some of the limitations would be sometimes for larger populations, it may not be possible nor practical. And then again, people who are selected may not be responsive, and then the sample results may vary from one sample to the other due to chance or sampling error. So there are limitations in this. Systematic is again random, but in this time we will actually divide the population, or we will have the sampling frame where you list all the 16 of you, and then we will say, okay, we are going to select 5. That means we need every third person, because 16 divided by 5 will give you 3, and then there's a reminder. So every third person. So you decide at random uh, who you are going to decide select first, the first person, second person, or the third person in that list. So at random you can decide 1, 2, or 3. So if you decide 2, then the next person selected should be 2 plus 3. That means 5, and then the next person should be 5 plus 3, and so on. If you decide, so that will be 2, then 5, then 8, then 11, then 14, and then so on. If you decide to take 1, then it will be 1, then 4, 7, then 10, then 13. If you decide 2, then it will be 2. Uh, uh, sorry, we have talked about 2. So 3, 6, then 9, 12, and so on. So that's the order that you will have to. So that is systematic sampling, and the systematic sampling. I've talked about this now. Advantages would be, again, it's simple, it's random, and it is useful for larger populations. And we have done this. Let's say one example is we went to Addu for research, and then we need to select houses at random. So we decided, okay, we found out the number of houses in Addu, and then we needed, I think, 200 total sample. So we divided the total number of houses by 200, and then the actual value we got. Then we went into every nth house of in Addu and then collected data. So that is the sort of systematic sampling that we use. There is a limitation. There's a bias underlying pattern in there. Again, non-responsiveness is there in this case as well. It is more efficient. Systematic sampling can lead to sampling error due to random variation. The third type is stratified sampling. This is more representative than the other two because populations are varied. Although I've talked about homogeneous and same color and all that, that's not true because every individual is more or less different. So you would have differences in population, differences in demographics like age groups, income brackets, gender. So there can be demographic differences, there can be cultural differences, and so on. So what we do in stratified is divide the population into different groups based on our research questions, the different stratas, and then from each group we select randomly, simple random, until our sample size is good enough. The sample size would be defined earlier, so based on that, it will be a sort of representation of each group should be there. So that is a more representative way of doing sampling. So that is the what I've just talked about. The advantages is this has an enhanced representation. It's more precise, and then it's more compatible with our research objectives, depending on, because our stratas will be depending on our research objectives. There are limitations here because we need more knowledge about the population for stratification. It's more complex. Potential bias is there, yes, when it comes to. And then finally, cluster sampling. Cluster sampling is sometimes we may call it multi-stage as well, but generally cluster sampling is when it's difficult to do either of the any of the three that we have talked about for practical reasons. Say for example, Maldives. We want to do simple random sampling. It's very difficult to have 500,000 people, 400,000 people, and out of that we want to do a sample of, let's say, one third, let's say 80,000 people, and at random, simple random, if we do that, then we may get people from every island, 192 islands. Every island we may get people. And if you have to travel there, that will be actually very logistically, it will be a nightmare. So how do we get a representation? So we divide the country into clusters. So a cluster of all small islands, or a cluster of all medium-sized islands, a cluster of all cities, and then we do randomly, we select a group of small islands, a group of medium-sized islands, and a group of, let's say, a sample from cities. From the cities, let's say from Kurdupuri, Addu, and Formula, Formula may be selected. Then we only go to Formula, and then we say that that is representation of the cities. For the larger islands, we take a group, and then we say, okay, that is the group that represents the rest of the island, and then so on. So that is what cluster sampling is. Again, the definitions is clustering, defining the clusters and randomly selecting the clusters, and then sampling within the cluster. This simplifies the sampling process. It is more beneficial for geographically dispersed populations, and it preserves the natural groupings as well. Limitations, there's an increased variability because clusters can lead to increased sampling variability between the different clusters. The precision may be reduced because different cities may have different aspects or different sort of demographics, different sort of characteristics. So there may be differences, and then there is the case of non-responsiveness as well, which applies to any random sampling. So generally, those are the 4 types of random sampling, and I said 20 minutes, but I think I've gone beyond that already. So I will stop there for now, and then we will continue from this, and we will come back to some of the examples of probability sampling as well. But I actually wanted to start the sampling topic so that you can also start thinking about your second assignment, your sampling as well. Sampling, you don't have to limit to these 4, but you can actually go to the others as well. So I will stop there for now.